Okay.
Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Soul Stories, because every soul has a story. And today we have the beautiful soul Maura Leon with us to share her story. You probably all know Keith, her husband. If you've been following my work, you've noticed that Keith and I do a lot of things together online. And this is Keith's beautiful wife, Maura, and I am so excited for you to meet her today if you have not already met her on our Conversations in Consciousness. Maura, welcome.
Thank you, Lisa. It's so fun talking with you. It's always fun.
Absolutely. I love these conversations that we have. It's always high vibe, high consciousness, just filled
Yeah.
with love and light. And that's what the world needs more of.
Yes, more and more, as much as we can give it.
Exactly. So all of us have a story, and a lot of us kind of, you know, discount our stories and we don't share our stories all that often. And so this show is all about us just sharing our life stories, because the more we share our stories, the more we realize that we are not different as we thought we were. We are far more similar than we are different, even though our stories are very different in context. So let's hear about your story. You have a very interesting story, because I know quite a bit about your background, and you've had a really interesting background. So what would you like to share? What's your story?
Well, I don't know. I guess I start with where when I was born and where I was born and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely a child of the 60s. I was born in 1965, and I grew up in the 1970s, but it was definitely that 60s child vibe, hippies all around me. And yeah, very, very much influenced by the 60s in my childhood. And my parents had moved from Boston, where like my dad's parents and my mom's grandparents were Italian immigrants in Boston, and they had moved to Vermont before I was born. So I I was raised in the country, and my childhood memories from, well, early childhood and a lot of other parts of my childhood are just like being outside in nature, just playing like kids do when you let them go outside in nature.
Right.
The natural world. And yeah, so my dad was a language professor first, and then he became a documentary filmmaker. And my mom was a homemaker, and she was like very into, she was kind of a health nut. She was very into like learning how to, basically what I've come around to now, which is eating whole foods and natural things, and doing her best to make them taste good, which she got better at as time went on, thankfully. Same with me. I'm getting better at it. um, and then my dad had a really charismatic personality. Everybody loved him. He was like always the life of the party. And then like he had another side to him that was, kind of a darker side. And the whole Italian family, uh, very emotional. And, I was always very emotionally sensitive. And I've realized as I, became a young adult, I started to realize that my dad had that emotional sensitivity as well. And he probably did a really good job with handling it compared to maybe how he was raised. But at the time, it looked to me like he was just like not handling it at all. But like now in hindsight, as I look at him, because my dad just passed away last summer, I'm I've really been able to see more about, you know, where he came from and what he was dealing with. And, and same with me now that I'm doing more and more of uh, sort of looking at my own sensitivity and how I can uh, work with my body's healing of that in all ways, and the ways that I wasn't able to process it when I was younger. So it's really the same thing he went through. It's the same thing I went through, just a different time period, a different generation, and kind of a different world in some ways.
Yeah.
For sure, growing up in Italy had to be a lot different. Well, actually, he didn't grow up in Italy. He was born in the United States, um, but growing up with a family that had just come from Italy was, that had to be really different. Um, yeah, so I, when I was young, was very emotionally sensitive, and I also was, and I've heard other people say this too. I was really more comfortable around adults than I was around other children. I just felt like, yeah, I
Yeah.
just felt, what's wrong with these kids? They're like mean to each other, and they just like do stupid things, and I feel like anything I do is going to be stupid because they don't get who I am. I didn't even get who I was. I mean, I guess I did, like on a deep level I did, but
Yeah.
then I started being confused about it because nobody else seemed to really be on
Right.
that wavelength that I was on.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, so there's that tendency to just sort of like, okay, well, like I want to be in my world because in some ways it's awesome. In my world, my inner world, or the world that I see, the parts that I see that are beautiful, like I want to be there, but there's this other thing going on with everyone else, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I just, yeah, I don't get it. And so I felt like I was always the weird one. And, of course, the sensitive one, people would be like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm kind of shutting down the part of me that did know, or maybe I just didn't feel like I could explain it to them, or like they would really want to know or would understand.
Mhm.
And also, I think I didn't know because I was at that point, um, taking on emotional stuff from people around me, and possibly from people who weren't even around me, possibly from the collective. I don't know. Because at that point, it was like just trying to be in the real world.
Right.
Yeah. So I couldn't, I didn't really feel like I was at liberty to understand or explore what I was feeling. So it wasn't really encouraged or supported.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm doing that now. Almost 60 years later. uh yeah. So it was we were like a family of hippies, around a lot of hippies. They lived on communes in Vermont. There was this place called Lost Nation that a lot of my parents' friends, where they lived, where you couldn't even bring a car up there. You just had to like park, I don't know, a mile away or something, and like walk through the through the field or through the woods or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think maybe they were off grid. Like I didn't know that term back then. I was just a kid, and I was just kind of, and that part was cool. I love the part, like being out in nature with people doing things either outside or in places where they had their homes in natural places.
Mhm.
And then inside, when we'd be at parties and stuff, and there was just like, this is why I say I was influenced by the 60s. There was all this trippy music going on and people probably smoking stuff. I'm just guessing. I know, like, when I was a little bigger, I did learn, some of my parents' friends were definitely smoking stuff because that's what they did, was
Uh,
not a big deal. Um, and so, yeah, so there was definitely this element of like this sort of trippy vibe. And I think I kind of liked that. So maybe that was why I was more comfortable around the adults,
mhm.
because it was like, well, there's some energy moving here, something going on, you know. So yeah. that was the Vermont part of my childhood. And then because my dad decided to go into documentary film because he'd been teaching first at the St. Johnsbury Academy, which was a semi-private high school, and then at the college level he started teaching languages. But then he really loved film and he really wanted to be a filmmaker. So with my mom's prodding saying, get the F in the car, get behind the effing wheel and drive, when it really came time to like make the decision and go out to LA and go to graduate school at UCLA for film, which is what he ended up doing. And that was a crazy trip the first time. And this is just from me hearing about it later, because I do have memories as a child of, being in this van, with beds on top of plywood, on top of a 2x4 frame with all our belongings underneath, and our, and mom making antipasto salads and, and the stuff. I do have those kind of memories, but in terms of learning like what was actually happening, I didn't learn that until later. And so what I learned was that, and this part I don't have a memory of, but apparently we camped on the beach when we first got there in our van for, I don't know how long. I think it was at least a couple of weeks, maybe a month or more. And this was like on the county line between Malibu and Ventura or something like that, or maybe Malibu was, I don't remember. I don't remember what the counties are, but it was where all the surfers were and some of the movie stars, things going on there and stuff. So that was kind of interesting, exciting in a way. But we went out there without him even knowing that he was accepted yet. Apparently the timing was a little, it's interesting now. Things in my life are kind of on this like timing squeeze too. I never thought about how it kind of reflects my childhood in that way. Interesting. I'm now that I'm learning to notice these parallels and synchronicities.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah. So we went out there, camped along the way, and then camped on the beach, and then finally they found a place to stay and found and it came with a dog, which was really nice because that was a beautiful white fluffy Samoyed dog, which we then later brought back to Vermont when we went back for the summer. And he just and then when it snowed in Vermont, he just went crazy because he'd never seen snow because he was a California dog. So
oh my gosh.
So those are the kind of fun memories I have of that. But it was like a nomadic life during that time, because we would be in Vermont in the summer and in California, during the school year, and drive back and forth in the van and be at campgrounds and have like adventures, like sometimes really weird adventures in our travels. Like driving up, this is again a story I heard, I don't remember it, but apparently we like drove up down some road at one point just looking for a place to park and sleep, and we were like in the desert somewhere, and maybe in the Southwest, and weird things happened in the Southwest
Right.
back then, still do.
Yes.
But I guess we came across like some cult of people who were like waiting for some messiah to come down from in a spaceship or something. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what the story was, and I think we ended up, I think my parents were like, oh, okay, nice to meet you guys. Bye.
Yeah. Oh.
So yeah, I mean, I think we all have guardian angels.
Right.
Protect us in all these kind of crazy situations. But so that was like the early part of my childhood, was all that kind of wild adventures.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Like I like that whole variety, and like being able to get out and see the world, that there's more than just one little town or one little area. And, to really have some adventures, because I really think that we're supposed to be here having adventures and really
Yeah.
exploring this incredible planet.
Yeah, I agree, and in some ways, I did feel really fortunate and was really aware of, like, what what a privilege and a bless not privilege, but, like, what a blessing it was and what a great thing it was that we got to do all this traveling, and we did more traveling, I'll tell you about it in a minute, but, um, there were times with all the traveling where I just felt like I'd see people who lived in one place and, went to school with the same people over years of time. And and I kind of felt like, well, that would be nice.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
can understand that.
there are definitely pros and cons to it. It
Yeah.
was yeah, but and it's possible that I had a harder time connecting with people and making friends because of the traveling, or it's possible that I'm just that way anyway because I kind of was from a young age. And yeah, I definitely don't regret it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was 7 years old, I had the opportunity to go with my family to England and Afghanistan. And we spent like half the school year in England when I was in second grade. So that was a really cool experience because everything was so different.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was really, really, and the people were really nice. I remember that as a really good experience. I don't remember there being like bullying or any kind of crazy stuff that we had part of the time when I was growing up in Vermont and California, probably more so California. Um, so that was a really cool experience. And then Afghanistan, my dad was making films there when he was early on in his career. I think he got a grant to make these Afghan films, and this was before like occupation and all kinds of war going on over there, or
Mm.
maybe in between. I don't know. I don't know all the history, but um, yeah, it's really sad for me now because the people we met there were so beautiful, and the people that my dad was making films about. He made a film about an Afghan village and all the people in the village. And then he made a film about these two young boys called Naeem and Jabbar, and going off to school together and their adventure with that. And then
Wow.
years later, I just remember hearing, yeah, that village is no longer,
Mm.
and they're all gone. But I don't know. Yeah. So, but it was a very cool experience for me. These people were living in these mud houses, and the people we stayed with were Americans, I believe, unless maybe they were English, but I think they were American. And they had servants in the house, which I really wasn't used to, having to ask people to get me things instead of getting it for myself. But they told me, don't get it yourself because they will be offended and they want to do their job. And so that was really interesting
Wow.
because I always thought, oh, you have to be so rich to have servants. But in this case, I don't think that was the situation. Like I remember a few years ago, just we were talking to people who had moved to like Bali, I think it was Indonesia, and they were saying, oh yeah, if you come here, you have to have a servant, you have to hire somebody to like make you your smoothies and clean your house and do your yard and stuff, because if you don't do that, like you're looked at as like a bad person because you're not like employing people and giving them, you know.
Wow.
That
Interesting.
yeah.
Isn't it amazing how it's so different from country to country, culture to culture?
Yeah.
Wow. I'd be okay in Bali, I think. Like,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we were really looking at the possibility of going, but it's tough with family, and they
mhm,
have not only expectations, but you have such a connection to your family of origin that it's like the guilt if you even like don't like be there for them. You know what I mean?
right?
It's just too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, we've definitely worked on that in certain ways and broken through it in some ways, but it's always there. And yeah, this process of my dad passing away is has been so rich. it's been so much easier to connect with him since he left his body, because he was struggling so much, um, psychologically, emotionally, not just physically, but so much psychologically and emotionally that, and we just weren't on the same page at that point in life. So it was really hard, but we both tried really hard to stay connected in spite of that.
Nice.
And we both did a pretty good job. But I have a beautiful connection with them now.
Oh, nice. I mean, isn't it amazing how we can still connect and we still realize that, oh, we're not these physical bodies and that there's so much more to who we are. And we can always stay connected because we really can't be separated. Like, there's
Right.
really just the oneness.
Exactly. Like, and that's a really cool thing about my life that I'm realizing even more so now, that I really always have that had that ability. I don't know about always, but from a certain point in my life where I did get into like spiritual stuff, which I'll get to that, like after I met Keith, I went back to California. Um, I I was able to connect with people after they were gone because I stopped thinking about it as a difficult thing. I stopped thinking about it as impossible or as something that I shouldn't do, or
Mm,
that I should just be sad because they're gone from the body.
mhm.
And I really started, just what you said, I really started to get that, because that's what they taught. Okay, the place where I'm going to keep. All right, hold on. I've got notes here. I'm trying to go in order. Now I need some kind of a tissue or something. I know I have one here somewhere. There. Um, yeah, but the Keith and I met at Agape Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, and the teaching there is so, I mean, if you really get it, and I don't know if everyone who went there got it, and it's okay, because a lot of people just felt really good and it helped them get through things that they were working with, and that's great. But if you really get it at the core, it's what you said. It's that we exist on all planes. We are totally connected, and it's all love,
Mhm.
you know, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So being able to, from that point, I was really, and Agape is it's a really big place, like large congregation of people. And we were in the choir, and so we knew a lot of people, and it just seemed like people were always dying. And it wasn't that more people were dying, it was that we knew more people, and we knew what was happening to them because we were in the same spiritual community. So, you know, when somebody's gone, everybody talks about it. And so I just remember getting to the point where I could like be in that space of being like sad, but at the same time, like so peaceful and full of love
Mhm.
about this beautiful soul who had passed out of their body and into whatever happened after that.
Right? Back into their true nature.
Yeah.
Souls.
Yeah. And see it as a beautiful thing. And that was hard. So, but getting, okay, let me see. Do I want to go in order? Maybe I won't go in order. Oh, there was so much stuff before that. Wow. Yeah, I'm probably saying too many things. I don't remember when we started or how much time we have,
Not
but
at all. Just allow it to just flow organically. It's your story. You get to tell it however you want.
mm, well, it was cool because I did these bullet points this morning. I was like, okay, what happened in my life? And so I'm doing like this life review, right? And it was just wild, like condensing my life into bullet points. But I kind of, because I've, written books and all that, I do tend to be able to like structure things that way. So it was kind of fun to do that. So
Yeah.
let me just see. Let me see if I want to get back on track or just be organic with it. Uh, oh yeah. All right. So yeah, England, Afghanistan, great adventures. In my preteen and early teen years, we went to, it was mostly just preteen, whatever. We lived in Indiana. My dad was teaching at the
Mm.
University of Illinois. Uh, and then, and then we went back to Vermont and actually did get to do high school, all 4 years of high school in one place, which, I thought, oh, this is so great. And in a way it was, but in a way it wasn't, because when I got there, everyone else had been going to school together all the years before that. And they were at different schools, because in my town, it was like one high school for all the little towns, but all the little towns had their own little elementary schools. They were really small. So they all had their groups of friends. And I had my sister because I came as a freshman and she was a senior when we moved back to Vermont. So thank goodness I had her. That was great. And we got very close at that time, actually, because my older brother had just gone off to college. He was 1 year older than her, and he was sort of the tormentor in my family growing up. And he would like pit my sister and I against each other. And so with him gone, it was like, oh, we can actually be friends. This is nice.
Aw.
Yeah. So, and again, I feel for my brother now too. He's we all go through, nobody's going to be mean to anybody for no reason. And there are so many things that go on with each of us individually that cause us to not necessarily be nice to ourselves and each other. And
Right?
we all have had our share of that.
Absolutely. Nobody has escaped unscathed. This is, living in this realm of fallen consciousness. And, this is, all of the anti-self programming that happens that, is designed to make us feel bad about ourselves. And because when we're feeling badly about ourselves, just kind of opens that door. It's like, oh, I don't like me. So, I'm just gonna step away and ignore myself, and then opens the door for others to come in and start manipulating. And you know
Mhm.
it's a crazy game that we've been playing here on this planet for thousands of years.
Yeah. And we're shifting it now, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
really are, because those of us who are already seeing that, we're already seeing that and starting to do the work. Like, I feel like the work that I did over like lots of years now is being condensed, and I'm doing it like deeper and more intensely over a shorter period of time. And I'm just so much more willing, and there's people around me in the same thing, like more willing to like take responsibility um for those things that we were sort of programmed to do, say, believe, to each other, to ourselves. And yeah, and shift that and know that we can. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, to know that
exactly.
we're like no longer subject to this. Yeah, it's still in there. Yeah, we still got work to do. But we can shift it, and we're doing that, and it's beautiful.
It is
Yeah. That's
powerful.
where am I at here? So back to Vermont for high school. Okay, so now we're going into adulthood. Now I had more traveling. I went with my family to England and then to Spain. My parents bought a cave house in Spain.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, we're trying to figure out what to do with that now.
Mm.
it's it's still there.
Wow.
Really cool place. It's like caves dug into the side of the mountain, so man-made caves, and they
Yeah.
do backs of the houses in these Spanish villages. The
Yeah.
the rooms in the back are like caves because the temperature control is really good with a cave, and it's just a really cool environment. But up at the top of the mountain is like where like the animal caves and stuff are, where they keep the animals,
Mm.
and it's like the less desirable place. Like the nice houses are down in the plaza at the bottom of the hill, but up on the top of the mountain is like where you have the incredible views, and you're like at the dead end of the road, like where nobody else, you have privacy. So that's the property that they got, like, for like nothing years ago.
Wow.
And it was just a bunch of caves that had animals, but they had been a dwelling years ago for a woman who lived in the town. And there were just like clay water jugs and fireplace. There's two different fireplaces in there, and so we just had to clean it all out. And it didn't have. I think they had to put in plumbing, electricity, and stuff. I don't think it had any of that.
Right.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so I got to go there. That was really cool after they had already done some work on it. Because my dad, after he made his films in Afghanistan and Vermont, then he ended up teaching film at the National Film School in England and being the head of documentary there. Um, so they that's why they got the place in Spain, because like it was easy to go and take their vacations and work on this place whenever they had a holiday, right?
Wow.
So,
That's
so between high school and college, I think it was, or was it after my first year of college? I don't remember. There was a point where I went over there and I brought my art supplies with me and like did some paintings over there. So that
wow.
was really cool. Yeah, that was fun. Good memories there for sure.
I bet. Ooh, that sounds romantic. I love that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. So I tried to be practical. I went to Syracuse University first because I really wanted to study art, but I thought, well, graphic design is more practical. This was right before computers came in, so graphic design, everything done by hand, and I was just like so bored with it. And then I saw these people painting, and I was like, I need to do that.
Nice.
Yeah, so I ended up going to like art school back in the woods north of Boston, in tiny little school, and that was a great experience. But also, a lot of sort of traumatic relationship stuff. I hadn't learned how to do relationships from my family, except for the love part. The love
Right.
part was really good.
Uh,
Communication part, not so good. Feelings, not so good. Understanding who we are, not really. Right.
yep.
So I actually, when I left, okay, this is a story that you like. I think I told you this story about the chicken coop. Remember
Yep.
that story?
Yep.
Yes. So I ran away from my first year of college, basically screaming like I had ended up getting mono, which I now understand is not because I kissed somebody and got germs from them.
Right.
It's because of the stress and intense, triggering of probably childhood trauma or whatever, of being out on your own and dealing with all the things that you deal with. Um, yeah, so I'm like laying in bed and just having this, like I could barely swallow, strep throat and all that stuff. And
Mhm.
I'm just noticing like how all these friends that I have, like really it's not really what I thought it was, and the school isn't really what I thought it was. Yeah, I just did a lot of soul searching while I was lying there in bed.
Right.
I was
Wow.
just like, yeah, this isn't for me. I need to get out of here. Cause when you're just going along with everything, it's like, yeah, yeah, we'll do this. We'll get a house for the summer and then we'll be back at school next year. It'll be so great. And yeah, no, I was like, nope, I'm going home. And my parents weren't at home, they were in England. so so my mom came back and we had people renting the house, but we had this like building outside the house that we had used as a chicken coop. They got chickens at one point, but there were no chickens in there anymore. But there was chicken poop. It needed to be cleaned out. So my mom cleaned it out and set it up with little cot beds and stuff. And we stayed in the chicken coop for at least a month, maybe two. I don't remember.
Oh my gosh.
And to this day, my mom, when she remembers that, which her memory is very different now. Not her short term memory is the worst, but now the long term memory is starting to go too.
Mm.
Um, but there was a point where she just kept remembering that memory and talking about it over and over. And she's
Oh,
like, everybody came to see the crazy ladies in the chicken coop. Yep, that's right, mom. We had fun. It was a beautiful time bonding with my mom.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and then we traveled back to Indiana on an Amtrak train and went and saw people that we knew back there from when we had lived there. And so that was really, really beautiful time with my mom. And yeah, and then I went back on my own again. So that was kind of the, trying to go out on my own. Oh, no, need my family again, right? But by the time I finished art school, and I was like, between like the emotional turmoil, depression, I never was good with money because I didn't understand it. I was just like
Mm-hmm.
Why are you people acting like this stuff is important? like
Right.
like what's important is what we create and how we relate to each other. And like, why do you think we need these pieces of paper in order to like have things? Like there's things all around us everywhere.
Right.
Right? You just give to each other like you did in your family growing up. Remember how that was?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I wasn't very good with money. I had to kind of force myself to get with that program. Unfortunately, I met Keith, who is well better at it than I am, because he's willing to play the game, but he also sees that it's a game, so which is good too. But then I started finding out about things where I really could like where other people were gathering together to really learn about themselves, take responsibility, learn how to, you know, undo all the crap that was done.
Yeah.
Right.
Clear
So
out
first
all the programming.
right. So first that was 12-step programs. And interesting that you just said programming because these were also programs.
Right.
So yeah, there were good things about it, but it was also kind of a program too. It was more of a reprogramming,
Yeah.
which mostly was good. It was because the things I didn't like, they said take what you like and leave the rest, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm doing. So that was good. And then I took a local parenting course when I was back in Vermont on my own at that point. Before I met Keith, before I went out to California and met Keith, I took a parenting course to learn how to parent myself.
I love that. I
Yeah.
think that's brilliant.
And I was
Because
the
it's
only one
true.
there.
We all
Yeah.
need to reparent our inner children, those wounded parts of ourselves.
Yep.
It's like
It was
they
awesome.
need that parenting.
Yep. It was really, really good. It was really good. And the woman who wrote the book that we used, I think she ended up writing another book after that. Maybe she heard about me. I don't know. But she ended up writing another book about like how like this is for like a book for the parents to parent themselves, basically. Because the original book was for how to parent your children. But that even that original book talked about how, like dealing with the stuff that's inside of you when
Mhm.
you're trying to parent children. But then she went and did a book that was specifically for that. So that was cool. And yeah, I definitely recommend that for anyone and everyone. Um, inner child work, mirror work, all that stuff is it's
Yeah.
like the hard thing to do because A, it seems too simple that it could really work and help
Right.
you. And
Hmm.
B, it's not simple, it's extremely confronting.
Yeah.
Right? Because it just makes you have to feel the things you don't want to feel. But what I'm learning now is that feeling things, when you really learn how to, or I'll speak for myself, when I really learn how to feel things in my body that are uncomfortable and I don't get caught up in my head about either how uncomfortable it is or what it means or what to do about it, I just feel it.
Mhm.
Body takes care of it. That's
Exactly.
my body wants to feel things. Like that's what it's good at.
We're all taught to not feel things. Big boys don't cry, big girls don't cry. And, it's like we're supposed to do that. It's how we get things out.
Oh, even when I was little, I was told not to cry.
Right. And it's like, then we just stuff it in there and then it just gets stuffed into ourselves. And it's just like clutter in the house. Like if you don't do anything with it, it just sits there. Nothing's going to happen. Same thing
Y-
with our emotions. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I went on from the parenting course, I went on to do something called Insight Seminars, which is one of the personal development trainings. They call it experiential growth work or experiential seminars.
Mm.
And the first one was called the Awakening Heart, and then the second one was the Opening Heart, and third one was centering in the heart, and then they had a leadership training, and then they had a fourth one that was all about like discovering the purpose of your heart. So I went through those courses because like I took the first one and I was just like, okay, this like, like this is what life is about. This is what I've been feeling my whole freaking life. And here's a room full of people who are actually talking about it. and
Uh,
like doing exercises to like go there and feel that stuff,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and like improve your life because you're going there and feeling that stuff.
Exactly.
Every experience I've had, I don't regret any of it. It's all awesome. It's all awesome. And so yeah, so when I got into that seminar, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so I actually went on the path to be a trainer. I took every course in succession really fast. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't I don't know that I want to jump through the hoops that I need to jump through in order to be a trainer for their work. It started to feel just not in alignment, not like, again, not like it was bad. Like I still had a similar goal to that, but at that point I met Keith because I did go out to California for the advanced training. The fourth one was in California. It was 35 days in a row. That was the
Mhm.
training. Like you're just in there your whole life. It's literally the training, which was awesome and excruciating at the same time. it was it was some really deep work. And so while I was out there, I heard about this place called Agape, and I was like, well, that sounds kind of cool, but I didn't have time to go there because we were busy every day at the training. And then I went back to Boston after it was done, and I got involved in the Insight organization there. I got on staff, was just really involved in supporting the events and everything. So that was really cool, really, really cool. But I just, I had this like drive that I had to get back to California. And
Mm.
it, and in the leadership training, I ended up doing a project where I created my own relationship plan because I knew that was what I really wanted. I wanted, like, none of my relationships had gone well, and I wanted to learn how to do it, and I wanted to, you know, I knew that the one for me was there, and I knew it was time, or was time soon.
Mhm.
So I put together a plan that was like a business plan, but for a relationship, and that ended up kind of turning into what was our first book, which is called The 7 Steps to Successful Relationships. And so I manifested Keith using what's now called the law of attraction, but nobody was talking about it back then that we knew of. This was before the movie The Secret came out and all that stuff. And yeah, we met at Agape, and because I went back to California, left Insight, went back to California, did end up getting involved in the Insight stuff there and everything, which was great. But I met Keith at Agape, and he was a Hollywood guy. He was in a rock band, and he was working in Hollywood in a post production facility doing like editing and stuff. And so it was like, wow, this is cool. Oh boy, there's so much more. I'm only like halfway there. My notes. But yeah, so Keith had the reason why we ended up writing the book was because he had done a very similar process to what I had done. He didn't write it like a business plan. He just did it like a big, long, detailed list of exactly what he wanted because he'd been going to Agape and learning about the law of attraction, basically. Which again, they weren't necessarily focusing on that particular law. There are lots of spiritual laws, right? Lots of universal laws, natural laws, and all that.
Mhm.
And so he had a friend who was like, well, if you really want to find your perfect mate, then why don't you just use the same process you use for everything else in your life? Yeah. And I had come to the same conclusion. I was like, all these people are using these things they learned in the seminars for, success in their business. Um, what else? I don't know, whatever they were using, but money, all that stuff, but they weren't really talking about like using those tools specifically to manifest a relationship and then to make the relationship work. And I was like, well, I'm going to do that. So yeah, so that's what I did, and that's what he did, and we met each other and realized we did the same thing, and we're just like, wow. And like everything on his really specifically detailed list was true about me in the most amazing ways. It was crazy. And that's all in that book. It's a very easy book to read, and it's got like exercises. Wasn't as easy to write as, as it is to read. we would like get in arguments, and one of us would be like, hold on, let me get the notebook because this is good stuff. We don't want to miss this. Well, all our best fights are in there. And they're all stupid. They're all about stupid stuff. Not really, but because the stupid stuff triggers the other stuff, right?
Mhm.
But we're both highly sensitive, and we're total like soulmates, twin flames, all that. People have done readings on us and just gone, wow. And like shamanic work where they were just like, holy crap, you guys have been like so many lifetimes together, and you've been like doing like the most amazing things with the most amazing beings. And I
Wow.
was just like, okay. And at first it's weird to hear that stuff, but then it's like you get to a point where you're like, well, maybe that's why I've been feeling this feeling inside me my whole entire life, where I feel like something important needs to happen. I don't know what it is yet, but I know it needs to happen. you know? So yeah, so we wrote the book, and 9/11 happened, and his son came to live with us, and we wrote the book, and then I found out about 9/11 and went down the rabbit hole.
Um,
Started
yeah,
finding out about things that aren't what they appear to be, and
yeah.
that whole thing.
Mhm.
And Keith was great because like he wouldn't discount any of that, but he was like, hey, he'd like find me, late at night in front of the computer, and he'd be like, hey, do you want to maybe look at something else now? Because I think maybe you're going a little too deep. And at first I'd be like, what? No, because, and then I'm like, yeah, he's right. It's just like, you know, just seeing things. And this just happened to us recently. We've been doing a lot of processing the last few days. When anything happens where somebody's not who they appear to be, or somebody doesn't do what they said they would do, or they do something like they just act like crazy for no apparent reason, and like all you're trying to do is be in love and connection. All you're trying to do is like make something good happen.
Right.
Just it's so hard to understand. Like
Mhm.
even if you understand all the things we understand, it's still hard because it just like
Yeah,
gets you in your soul, and you're just like,
absolutely.
oh man. It's not just about what someone does to you, but it's about like for them, it's like, ah, you know, like you don't have to do that. You don't have to be that way.
Yeah. It's hard being awake in an asleep world. And it's really hard when we do all of our own inner work and our processing, and we start to see what's actually possible, and we start to live more in alignment with with our own dignity and honor and respect, and that peace and integrity are really, really important. And then we find out that not everybody's at the same level yet, and integrity is really not a thing for a lot of
Yeah.
people who are just working from their wounds. So it's
Yeah.
very difficult, very traumatizing, and that's what we could see as children,
Yeah.
looking out, being innocent children and being connected and seeing what's actually possible in the world, and then going, wow, like, why is nobody doing this? Like, why is
Yeah.
everybody fighting and not playing? Why is
Yeah.
everybody working and not playing?
Yeah. Yeah. And you just reminded me there was one thing I forgot to put on my list, and that was my original self-healing process, which I know I talked about on another one of your shows.
Mhm.
But that was right before I met Keith, right before I went out to California. I got the diagnosis of thyroid disease, and incurable autoimmune condition, right?
Mhm.
And went through, and did not, at that, and I was already at a point where because I was raised in that natural way, and I just knew deep down that the natural way was the way, and that the medical way was not
Right,
for me anyway.
Yeah.
So I didn't go the medical route, just like you didn't in your experience. And I really, I just knew that my body could heal. And I went through what I need to go through to get to that. And it happened relatively quickly, you
Right?
know?
Exactly. When we get out of the way and let the body do what it does, it just
Yeah.
heals itself.
Yeah. Though for me, I kind of had to change everything in my life. And moving to California was a big part of that. And then being with Keith and then, doing the work that we did together through the book, all the relationship work we did, because really everything is about relationships.
Exactly.
That's like we didn't end up following that track fully in our business because then as we were writing more books, people were like, oh, I want to write a book. Help me write a book. Oh, can you publish my book? So then we became book publishers. And that, that did better as a business.
Mhm.
But I realized everything we do, we're working on relationships. And then later it kind of came back around where people like, wait, you wrote a book on relationships? And they wanted to know more about that. And now I'm doing the self healing. So it's like real relationships and self healing definitely go together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah. So that's where I'm at now. I'm kind of skipping through quickly and not sharing all the traumas that happened during that time. But yeah, it's been a long and winding road, and the last few years have definitely been for me really a time of really deep growth, like deeper than I'd ever had before,
Mhm.
and in some ways that were challenging, and in some ways that were just been beautiful.
Right.
Like the awesome, soul family groups where we do sacred economy and
Sacred
embody
community.
mental wisdom and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like-souled beings, being surrounded by like-souled beings who get each other is just
Yeah.
so important because being the ones that could see from a different perspective for our whole lives then and feeling like, wow, like I don't fit in here. Nobody understands me. People don't get me. Like, it's really a struggle to move through life like that. But then when you're surrounded by all the people that do get you, and care and love, and that's the most important thing, then it
Yes.
really helps us to open up and blossom, and it's just so, invaluable.
Yep. And I also found out along the way that I was a really good coach. That was one of the stories I skipped, is that after I met Keith and we started our business and we're doing books and all that stuff, and then we took this thing called the Millionaire Mind Intensive,
Mm,
which turned out to be great because then they started a coaching program and they said we need new coaches, and we had already kind of been coaching on our own,
oh,
but not like officially. And then they just said, well, we need coaches now. So we did like a what 6 month course that they had. We did it in like 6 weeks because they had already like done their first batch of people who had gone through it, so they had it all on recordings. We are like, okay, let's go.
wow.
We did it, and then they just like gave us clients. And because Keith and I were focused on relationships from the time we wrote our book, like every type of client they had, if they didn't match with somebody else, they sent them to us. So we, we got tons of clients, and we were just like from call to call to call all day long, building our coaching skills.
Wow,
And it turns out we're both really good at that, among other things.
that's
And
amazing.
I love doing that. So that's something I'm getting more into now. I'm just like, okay, so self healing, relationships, um, you know, people who are ready to really look at um, hmm, what 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 isn't working and how am I in the way of that,
Right?
and how can I, you know, how can I open myself to shifting that and learn how to do it and have life be the way I want it to be
Exactly.
and
To
heal.
have a coach is, to guide you is just it's the shortcut. You know, like when I was healing myself, I didn't have a coach. I didn't have anybody to guide me. So my
Yep.
path was this really, really long and winding road, and I kept falling down all these rabbit holes and taking these detours. And, once I got to the top of the hill, I was like, oh, all right, I'm good now. I looked back and was like, wow, if I had just known these few things, I could have
Yep.
taken a straight path instead of all of this sidetracking stuff.
Yeah,
The world
exactly.
needs you. I'm glad you're gonna do this.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
our healing our relationship with our bodies is of primary importance.
It is. And I've really been I really have set out to prove that anything can be healed, you know? Like you went straight for the big one. I kind of went straight for the big one with the thyroid thing. Maybe not as big, but and now I'm just like, well, let me restore my natural vision. Obviously, I'm not there yet. It's a
It's a
process.
process, yes.
Yeah, and I mean everything from physical to emotional, psychological, trauma, things that I don't even know are there. Like learning how to tune into that and allow it to move through and clear. It's amazing what can happen when you just do it, when you just are open and willing, and like you said, when you have guidance and support. I've had some good guidance and support
Mhm.
this time.
Yeah.
It really does make a difference.
Yeah, it sure does. And, I think Mara and I are going to probably create some things together in the future that, to some coaching classes in the future. So, because we both see things from a similar perspective, but we've got lots of different background experiences. And, um, really our goal is just to help as many people as possible to heal as quickly as possible, because there's no need for us to hang out in these spaces of trauma and drama and dis-ease. And we can easily move through these things. All it takes is some very simple shifts of consciousness and just a willingness to open up and let go of these old beliefs because we've been so programmed.
Yep, it's time.
It is. Yes.
Hmm.
And all of us, we all have these stories of, trauma and drama. I mean, because this is the way the world has been set up for so long. In order for the powers to be in power, we've had to be without power. So if there are
Yeah,
people who are in power and those people are not us, then it means that we're lacking some power. So
right.
this is all about us reclaiming our own personal power, and that power is always love.
I love that because there's like this compulsion to focus on them, right? Them
Mm.
and what they're doing and what they're not doing and how it affects us. And it's like, okay, you're focusing on them and it's just going to keep perpetuating that.
Mhm.
Like we're the ones to change it.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing now. Come join us.
Right? Exactly. Yes, and we don't have to focus on them. We just have to be aware of what the big picture is. And then the focus is always on us, on ourselves, and opening up our hearts and allowing our own inner light to shine because our light is all we need for healing. That our bodies are simply showing us where we have shut down the flow of our own light. And as soon as we open that back up, then the body can heal because all it
Mhm.
really needs is us. It needs us to be who we truly are because who we truly are is divine and perfect. And there has never been anything wrong with who we are. We've just been
Right?
traumatized a lot in this world.
Yeah, yeah. It's like all the things I think maybe Keith said this. He said some great things. But all the things that it might have been originally me because a lot of times the things he ends up saying out loud in public, I said to him first. And he admits that. He gives me credit. Um, but the things that we see that we judge most about ourselves are the things that are the most beautiful about us.
Right?
When we can see it that way, the
Mhm.
difference it makes in how life unfolds and how our relationships go, it's just unbelievable. It's amazing. It's incredible.
Is. And our
Yeah.
lives are meant to be incredible. We're meant to live incredible, beautiful lives. And there's no reason why we can't. It's just a matter of us allowing it, taking our
Yeah,
power back,
that's
and,
right. Nobody's
and
stopping
helping
us.
each other. You know,
Yeah.
it really is about, we have to work together to do this. It's really,
Yeah.
really difficult to do it all by ourselves.
Yep.
But when we come together, we help each other and we give each other our gifts and talents, and we share our gifts and talents and help everybody bring out their own gifts and talents. And we just make this world a better place exponentially faster by working
It's true.
together.
You've convinced me. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Who else is on board with us? Come on, let us know in the comments if you are on board with us.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm ready. Let's go.
Me too. Let's go. Let's heal this world and let's start creating heaven on earth together. Beautiful. Mara, this has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
Is there
You're
anything
awesome.
else you'd like to share before we say goodbye to our audience today?
Mm, I'm looking out at these beautiful trees blowing in the wind with the sun glistening on their leaves. So I want to get out in nature. So I'll just tell everybody else to do that. That's one of the best things you can do for your life, for your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual and psychological well-being is connect with the natural world. So do
Exactly.
it.
Yes, we are part of nature. These physical bodies are part of nature. And it's in connecting to nature that we connect to God, source, our divinity. So, and that's why we always feel much better when we're outside in nature than inside these buildings. Beautiful. So, Mara, thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you sharing with us today. And to our audience, if you've liked this conversation, please like it. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or to the podcast. And my name is Lisa Warner. I'm the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. You can find that book on Amazon, as well as The 7 Steps to Successful Relationships by Keith and Maura Leon S. And check it out on Amazon. We'll have the links in the show notes. So if you're looking for those, just check out the show notes. So until next week, until next time we get together, create for yourselves a great week because you can. Bye for now.
Bye.